Hello again. I was thinking the other day about the terrible fuss which is made these days about the possession of knives. Metal detecting arches are set up in railway stations in London and at the entrance to further education colleges. The college I was working at until quite recently regularly used to invite the police there to set up a metal detecting arch, and the police would check to see whether or not the students were carrying knives before they entered the college. This is all very strange and irrational because knives are no more dangerous really than glass bottles or planks. It's not knives which do harm, but the primitive savages who wield them. 50 years ago, every boy and youth in Britain was likely to own knives which they would carry around with them. I had half a dozen, so did most of my friends. They took them to school, they had them in their pockets at weekends, they even wore them on their belts if they were scouts or if they were going camping or just visiting the countryside for the day. The thumbnail to this video shows a really popular type of knife at one time, the sort of penknife that every boy owned. They were popular souvenirs to bring back from the seaside with their coloured pictures of the promenade printed on them, also often given as birthday or Christmas presents. Imagine any parent these days giving their 12-year-old son a knife for Christmas. Cathedrals sold them as souvenirs too, with little coloured handled pictures on the handles, images of the cathedral. Some of them had lots of blades and gadgets, including the one that was famously used allegedly for removing a stone from a horse's hoof. Sheath knives were also routinely carried not only for camping expeditions, but just as something to carry around with one. Old pictures of Boy Scouts show them with big knives hanging from their belts. Nobody thought anything of it at all. I remember once at school one of the masters was fixing a screw which had come loose on his desk, and he asked if anybody had a knife. A dozen boys produced penknives and offered them to him. Imagine today if a teacher found that 12 of his pupils were carrying knives. He'd call the police, expecting there to be a massacre or a gang fight or something. These weapons were used in games such as splits, where two people would stand on the grass facing each other and take it in turn to throw the knife down near the other person's foot. He would then have to move his foot to near where the knife had stuck in the ground, and then it was his turn to throw the knife. It was a bit like the game Twister. You could also show off by jabbing the knife very fast around your fingers like this. Yeah, you could do it with a pattern. It usually ended up with somebody cutting themselves, obviously. I never once heard of anybody using a knife as a weapon in the 1960s. I don't say it didn't happen. I never heard of it or saw anything of the sort. It wouldn't have occurred to any boy or youth at that time to have stabbed somebody. These days, though, knife crime is a terrible scourge which claims the lives of young people almost every week. I invite viewers to ask themselves why knives have changed from being an innocent accompaniment to boyhood and turned into something which is routinely used as a deadly weapon. Has anything changed in the country in the last 50 years or so which might account for this shift in the use of knives? Who are the people who are wielding the knives and causing injury and death with them? This is just one more of those aspects of modern life which illustrates with great vividity the change which has taken place in Britain since the 1970s.